I can do things at WED without asking anybody, even my wife.
Coney Island, world's biggest barrel of
And
fun.
anywhere else your imagination takes you.
Okay, we've done that now, Paul.
To get the whole show now, you hurry, hurry, hurry.
Anything's possible in Disneyland.
Welcome aboard the Themed Attraction Podcast, where we take you for a ride through the wonderful world of theme park design, that is. You've just set sail on a voyage to discover the who, what, why, and how they did it via in-depth discussions with theme park industry masters of the craft. I'm your skipper, Freddy Martin, and with me today, as always, is theme park designer, master planner, and chief creative officer of Storyland Studios, Mel McGowan. Where are we headed today, Mel?
Freddie, our trip today is to a unique destination in the global theme park stage. We're going to Utah, buddy.
All right.
To an amazing opportunity to see the birth of a brand new little baby theme park with the design and creative minds behind Evermore Park in Pleasant Grove, Utah, Josh Shipley and Josh Steadman, otherwise known as Josh Squared. Josh Shipley is the Chief Creative Officer there at Evermore. He's a Disney Imagineering veteran who spent an entire career creating experiences with the company. That is until he was asked to lead the creation of something entirely new and unique with Evermore. Josh Steadman is his Director of Show Design and Production. He also came from Imagineering, where he was just fresh off of Shanghai Disneyland and creating some of the most beautiful environments and attractions out there. Both Joshes are definitely stud muffins creatively and from a design chops who are passionate about creating living theater where you get to actually step into and onto the stage and be part of the adventure, which is really the bottom line of what Evermore is all about.
Yeah, that's right. So if you've ever wanted to know what it's like to see a theme park dream become a reality, this is a story you've got to hear. Okay, folks, keep your hands, arms, feet, and legs inside the boat, because this episode is about to leave the dock. Hit it, Sam. So, Mel, Evermore Park is open. I first heard about it on social media. I'm suddenly seeing all these drawings, and they were sharing images of costumes and some of the sets that were being built at this place. And I thought, wait, what's going on? Somebody's building a theme park in Utah? This is incredible. Look at this stuff. I mean, it was beautiful work that they were showing, and I thought, this has to be somewhere that I can reach it, and it's in Utah. Pretty cool. How did you first hear about it?
Well, to be honest with you, I was in the process of trying to hire Josh Steadman for a project for a theme park we're working on.
Really?
When he got snaked out from under me. So, I'm thrilled. I think it literally was a match made in heaven, and I'll try not to be too bitter as we talk about this great little project that he got to play with here.
Yeah, and after we recorded the episode with them, I started to think back on some of the different ways that people begin building creative and immersive places. I've heard a lot of through these interviews and different things that we've been doing. Heard a lot of theme park folks talk about how they first got bit by that experience design bug. And sometimes a lot of their stories revolve around starting a horror maze or something in their house, a haunted house. I know that's the story of some of the guys from Evermore. So I was thinking maybe you could tell me, what was your first thing that you ever built, designed, created where somebody could walk into an experience?
Well, for us, it was, I actually have two brothers, the McGowan brothers, Peter and Ed, both of which work with me at Storyland. One is my design partner, and the other one is our director of design. And our first project was my brother Pete's bedroom. It was literally maybe one of the first Star Wars location-based attractions, basically. I mean, we probably purchased every consumer product available back in the 70s in terms of Star Wars sheets and pillows and the vinyl album and every figurine. And so basically what it was essentially a shrine. You would walk in the room. We had the music queued up.
Wow.
We had, every play set up around the room. And the cool thing is he's kept on with that tradition. He built his son a Millennium Falcon cockpit loft bed that has taken it to a whole nother level.
Really cool. I've seen it. It's amazing. I think for me, I know that I was really fascinated by the Haunted Mansion, probably scared to death of it, and to the point where I thought I need to recreate this in my house so I can exercise some fears of my own. And so in my garage, I would have my parents come through, and I had stuffed my kid sister into the washing machine and put a sheet over her so she could pop up and out, and I hung it was a W.C. Fields doll. I suddenly remember. I hung a W.C. Fields dummy from the rafters as an effigy, and pulled some strings, and some spiders climbed out of the laundry basket. That was how I first did it. And it's just so fun to sit here and listen to folks who have the same passion about creating something where people are immersed in these experiences. And so that's what the guys from Evermore are about to share with us in this episode.
Well, yeah, to go from that homemade haunted house to creating things like The Void, virtual reality stuff, and now to an entire park with Evermore. What a trajectory.
Yeah, it really
can't wait to see
is.
What's next.
It truly is. Well, the recording of this interview took place when Evermore was still less than 1 month old. And so we got these guys when they were in the midst of their excitement. They were still reeling from opening a brand new experience park. And as you listen to their excitement in their voices, we know you're going to feel it too. So let's get this baby going. Here's our interview with two proud new papas, Josh Shipley and Josh Steadman of Evermore Park. Well, we're super excited today to have couple of the guys who led the development and the now from design development to opening day of something,
an ongoing execution.
The ongoing execution of this beautiful place called Evermore Park. We have Josh Shipley and Josh Steadman on the phone. Are we Joshes or are we Joshuas?
We're Joshuas to be specific, but
but by birth certificate, I think we're both Joshuas. But let's just and to make it even more weird, we're both Joshua Davids.
How crazy is that?
My.
With S's is the beginning of our last name, same initials. Yeah.
Wow.
Funny, we get each other's mail.
Squared.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I can't wait to help get the word out on Evermore. It's not every day that an entirely new evolution, if not revolution, in themed entertainment comes along, and really just a kind of, again, a new typology, new. So I won't even try to attempt to describe it. I know you guys have probably spent quite a bit of effort trying to educate the world on what Evermore is. But what's the elevator pitch summary of how you would describe Evermore Park?
Well, the elevator pitch is that this is a fully immersive adventure park that you are expected to come and role play and be a part of this fantasy world, which is called Evermore. I mean, that's just the really, really quick one or two liner there.
That's great. Yeah, it reminds me of when Animal Kingdom opened up and they had the marketing, not a zoo, something.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not a theme, not just the theme park.
Not the theme park.
Right. So much more. Where did the roots of the seeds of the idea come from? Is that something that you guys have been on the journey for quite a while?
Yeah,
or?
Ken's story.
So
pretty interesting.
His story is interesting because he's always kind of been a dreamer like the rest of us, right? Really, he's a showman and entertainer because he used to host these parties at his house for Halloween. And he had thousands of people show up and walk through it, and he'd decorate and build big set pieces and hire the right talent for effects and whatnot. A couple years back, he did a pumpkin festival here in Utah that was pretty successful. Saw some big crowds and big numbers, and he started doing immersive storytelling in that environment. And then he worked on a company called DigiCert, digital certification, and then rolled that into The Void, which, as we all know on this call, is an immersive VR walkthrough, which no one had really cracked that nut until Ken figured it out with his team, which was here in Utah, right? And then they branched out, went international. So long story short, that all came into Evermore. The Void actually started and came from Evermore, and then he had to put Evermore on hold for a little bit. So here we are. We're back at it.
That's incredible. Now both projects are live and launched.
Isn't that crazy? It's cool.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's very cool.
And both pretty groundbreaking projects in and of themselves. How long have each of you guys been on this particular journey?
Well, for me, for Shipley, I physically moved to Utah with my family on October 3rd of 2017. So physically here in the space, just barely over a year from right now. But I did commit and sign on to Evermore as chief creative just a couple of months before that time. So wrapping up and moving away from Southern California, took me a couple of months, but it's really hasn't been that long. As much as this has been, the Brett Schneider dream for many years, for us, and I'll let Steadman speak for himself, but for me, this is still a new thing. I still feel like I'm a transplant, and although we have nonstop responsibilities on the project and have opened this park, there's still a sense of finding the footing in a new market as part of a team that's been dreaming about this for a very long time.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Well, how has the opening gone? The feedback you're getting, what surprised you? What went exactly according to plan?
Oh man, where do we even start?
There's a lot there.
Yeah, we've been open, even with our soft opening. We've been open for just barely over 3 weeks. Am I getting there? Timing right?
Yeah, that's
it's kind of
right.
blending together right now.
Still in the throes.
Yeah. But I mean, for me, there's a lot about this park that is theatrical. My son, who's part of the cast as a goblin, actually. Before
Who wouldn't want a goblin for a son?
yeah, before we even moved up here, and I was telling him about this new thing that I was going to be, leaving Disney and going to go do in Utah. And I was explaining it to him. He coined the phrase, living theater, in terms of the experience, and that's exactly what we've carried out through this is living theater. So the reason I bring that up is we approach this with a level of story and scripting and things that we intend, and much like with anything in the themed entertainment space, when you hand it over to your guests, to your audience, if you're being a good steward to them, you are watching and listening. And I will say, from our very first soft opening date, we learned things on night one that have now become a standard in what we're doing that we never even discussed. One of those is a large figure called the Fey King, and he's the big baddie, and the way that the park is intended in its full build out is, he's discoverable back in the deep forests, and there's creepy creatures around him, and just due to the nature of the progress of the park build out, his stage portion has not come to completion yet. And so we placed him at the front of the park purely as an iconic piece. And he's puppeted, and he's just meant to be mean and growling. But on that first night, the puppeteer inside, started having more verbal interactions with our guests. And before you know it, little kids that we thought would be terrified of this great big creature with huge horns, little kids were coming out and asking questions, and where did you come from, and where do you live, and what do you eat? And you're supposed to be scared of this thing. We always planned for him to be scary, right?
He's become kind of a mascot.
And now he genuinely is this mascot in the park. He's part of the questing adventure system in the park. You have to go and talk to him, and he gives you a title. It's usually a little insulting, and people giggle and laugh over. And now people want T-shirts and all these things. We never, ever thought that the Fey King was going to be this character that people, were gravitating towards. And that only came from getting live, living, guests coming into the park and telling us what they want. That's one example. We have a lot that have happened like that in just these last 3 weeks.
We had, so in park last night, the park was packed, which is always awesome to see, especially from Shipley and I's perspective. We're we've worked in this industry for a long time. We've worked on the operations side, so to see it in a capacity side is just so inspiring. But then to also see people circling the fake king, we had probably at one point 75 people around him last night laughing, chanting.
And he was never meant to be that.
And it was never intended. It's organic. The whole thing is kind of happening in a very organic process in that we've adapted. That's the thing about theater. I just got to say this is that good theater molds changes for the audience, right? There's a part of it where it adapts to meet audience expectation.
Well,
That's
especially
what
when
good theater is.
especially when we're the writers.
Yeah.
We're not beholden to the existing script or
an
playwrights
IP.
that are out there.
Yeah, or an IP-based system.
Exactly. People are letting us create it on the fly.
The other thing is too, and from the set design perspective, we've built and installed scenery that is tangible. Guests can touch it. There's not a barrier. There's not a rope drop. There's nothing like that. You walk through set pieces that immerse the guest. That was just my 2 cents on telling the story from Ship's perspective too, on the acting side and the performance side and all of that. Each set piece has got to represent a character, and it's got to tell that story of the characterization as best as it can. And it's also an actor, right? So how do you immerse guests? Well, you tell the story with scenery. You do it as best as you can, and you throw people in that environment. And I think we've adapted scenery as fast as we do this stuff
seriously.
fast. We get 24 hours to make a decision, and then we do it. We install it, and it's that fast. And we do it as best as we can make it look like Hollywood, Disney style, Universal style scenery.
Well, I mean, I feel like we got to rewind a little bit to really understand Evermore. I almost feel like it might be helpful to explain it in contrast to kind of the standard theme park typology that we're all familiar with. Both of you guys have spent time at Disney Imagineering. Did you guys know each other, or collaborate on projects together there?
Can I answer this?
Yeah, you should. Yeah.
Ship and I met 18 years ago or so.
Yeah, quite a
going
while
to
back.
Comic-Con. We had mutual friends, and Ship and I kind of bonded on the theater side. When I got hired at Disney,
and our love for
geek stuff.
I mean, Disney stuff. I mean, there's this Rocketeer, thing.
yeah,
I mean,
that's all
there's a
thing.
lot of things that we just really latched onto and became
we're all
immediate
bonded,
friends.
Yeah, I did a Rocketeer submission to a Disney contest for students years ago, and I gave Ship my portfolio on that submission, and he still has it.
I do.
You still have it, right?
Yep, I do.
Looks like an old comic book, I had it blessed by Dave Stevens before he passed, so I felt pretty like this thing was legit, right? I went to grad school, got my master's degree in scenic design for theater, studied under some real strong talents. Disney finally hired me when I was 36, when I was hired by Disney to work on Castle. And I would go into Ship's office and sit. He had this fancy office at WDI with a couch and everything, and I'd sit there and we'd talk about all things.
Kind of a
I
big
just had toys all over my office. It wasn't fancy.
That's what I mean. That's fancy to me, right? I love toys and statues and stuff like so. Anyway, we'd go and hang out and shoot things, on ideas and concepts, and it's because of Shipley that I'm here, really.
But I mean, on that WDI side, I mean, you ask about, did we collaborate at WDI? No, we were never actually on a direct project with one another. I mean, we both worked on Shanghai, but we were not on project teams together, and we were never part of any collaborative process officially. In the halls, we would just meet as friends and discuss, our commonalities and what we were working on.
Yep. That's how it worked for us, right? As far as Shipley brought me here to Evermore, because I had met Ken when I worked on Castle Walkthrough, and the story about Castle Shanghai, China, and we initially wanted to do something very much like Evermore that was walkthrough scenery. And Castle walkthroughs aren't walkthrough scenery. Yes, they're scenic, they're beautiful, but no one had done anything where it was an immersive set piece. So. I had met with Ken. He showed me the Void. I was blown away when I saw it on his stage at this facility that we're in actually right now years ago. And it was right when I got home from China. And I went, this is what we intended to do. So I stayed in contact then when Ship announced he was coming here, I was like, oh, Ship, dude, we gotta hang out, man, because because it was so similar, and we both are cut from the same cloth as far as tastes, and what we like, that it just made sense, you know. Yeah.
And Chip, how long have you been part of the industry? How'd you get in? And is it mostly tenured through Disney there? Or?
Yeah, well, for the most part. My basic upbringing history is our family owned and operated a stage theater in Upland and Ontario, California. So I grew up with my mom and dad, directing and producing live theater, and for me, that was my background. It's everything that I knew. It's where all my social and my friends existed from. Probably wasn't until high school that I realized that wasn't a very normal upbringing. Just because for me, it was day in and day out. It was what I knew, and I always thought, sort of like the old-fashioned trade business that, when you get old enough, you do what your dad did. And I thought, someday I'm going to grow up and be the director and run a theater and all that kind of stuff. And then, midway through high school, it was, hey, we're selling the theater off after, the family had been in it for a total of 23 years at that point. And for me, I'm just sitting there going, well, wait a minute. I thought I was supposed to grow up and run the theater or something because I'm young and naive. But I also, being in Southern California, had a deep, deep, deep love for Disneyland and Walt Disney. And, and so it also in my mind was the idea that, someday I could work for Disney as well. And eventually that is what happened. Just on that side, Steadman referenced the ops background. For me, my entry into the Walt Disney Company was being a tour guide and gangster on the Great Movie Ride in Florida. And that was heavenly for me. That was fun. It was Disney, it was theme park, it was Florida, which was a different place for me growing up in California. So, and then it was performance. When I got out there, and they said, where do you want to work? And I said, I want to work at the Great Movie Ride. And I kind of got that, that's what everybody says. Sort of like, I want to do Jungle Cruise, right? But then they sent me through the audition process with management, and I was able to do Movie Ride and got trained as a gangster and had fun doing that. Went seasonal with that for a few years. And then in 96, actually it was a little bit before then, let me back up. A little bit before then, my oldest brother is a scenic artist and figure finisher, and he had already been brought on at Imagineering to do work for Animal Kingdom. And actually, a little bit before then, he was working on the Indiana Jones adventure for Disneyland, doing the scenic stuff for the ride vehicles and stuff like that. And he gives me a call because he knows that I wanted to find a bigger spot within the company, and he gives me a call and says, we need some scenic help for Animal Kingdom if you want to jump on board. And I'm like, yeah, I would love to, but I don't know if that's really where my talents lend themselves. And he said it's no different than painting the sets at the theater, with our theater growing up. And when he said it like that, I went, oh, you know what? I do understand that. I do know what you're saying. Because for me, I'm looking at the grandeur of a Disney theme park, and he's bringing it back to the level of, we've done this our whole lives.
Yeah.
I just need you to come in and help me do some of it. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, good point. Went in thinking this could be for a day or a week. You always want it to be longer than that. But then you with tenacity, you find out where your skills lend themselves, and ended up being at Walt Disney Imagineering, wearing many, many different hats for a total of 21 years before stepping out and coming to Evermore. So,
wow, that's a big step, and it's an exciting step too.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of stuff in between that, but that's for another time.
Well, I've got to ask again the high level. Going from a project like a Shanghai Disneyland to the scale, to the speed, to the the lack of layers of an Evermore, working for an individual entrepreneur visionary like Ken. How do you even begin to compare, contrast the differences between those two paradigms?
I think we both have answers for that one, right? Chip?
Definitely.
First of all, I will say that working on a large scale project like Shanghai, there's so many moving pieces and so many people. I mean, it takes a city to build a city, right? Let's just be honest. Shanghai Disneyland's huge, and the fact that they opened a park all at once, not in phases, in its full grandeur, to me is always epic, right? That anyone can do that. So there's so many people on a project like that. Going to something that's a lot more organic, and it's homegrown. Homegrown.
Yeah.
It is Ken and a very intimate, small team of very talented people that sit in a room, make decisions on a Tuesday. We are building and making them on Wednesday. And I got to tell you, I love it. I just dig it because working in TV, working in, I have backgrounds in television and backgrounds in, I mean, like Ship Story, I also worked in the parks. I worked in the parks to understand operations so I could be a better designer. Mm-hmm. That's why I did it. And I think Ship.
That's a common theme with some of the designers we've had on the show.
You got to understand guest flow, guest perspective, what it's like to wear the guest shoes. Why do you tell a story visually a certain way? It's so important. And but going back and pulling on that experience and drawing on that experience, I would say that Ship and I and the team, we make decisions based on what tells a really great story. But also tells a great story from the guest side. What is cool? What do you want to experience? What do we want to experience as fanboys?
Yeah.
And I'm not afraid to admit that's what we are because...
No, I'm proud of it.
I'm proud I wear it like a Purple Heart because you know what? There's a lot of people who mock it. It's not mockable because the best directors in film are fanboys. Yeah. The best... comic book writers are fanboys at heart. They're people that love the craft.
How else can you create for an audience if you don't love it?
Yeah, if you don't like it and you talk down about it. So I would say there's some of that in the industry, and I will speak for both Ship and I. Part of being in Utah is getting away from some of that and just doing it because you love it and because there's no one telling you no. I would say we pitched an idea to Ken, and Ken goes, I love that. Right?
Yeah.
And he goes, let's do it. And we just do it.
And then we do it.
It's freaking awesome, right? There's no one going, oh, no, we can't do that. You don't know, la, la, la. You know, you're a company man or whatever it is. It's we do it because it works and because the audience is going to dig it, right?
Yes. So tell me about, you say, you know, one day you're talking about it and the next day you're building it. I mean, is the scenic shop right on property?
Yeah,
I mean,
you
guys just step out of the conference room and go into the...
Actually, yes. Right now we are in the creative studio, the shop area. The park is about a 5-minute drive from here, so it's pretty close. I had somebody who came through here several months back. They turned to me and they said, hey, Josh, it kind of looks like you're trying to recreate Old Wed. And I smiled and I said, that is such a massive compliment.
That's huge.
I mean, really, that is a huge compliment because the shop is here and so much of what we are doing really is at our fingertips. I mean, you know, it's not just like, hey, let's track down the sources to try and figure that out. I mean, yes, there is some of that along the way, but I mean, we're talking with our creatures and our set builds and all that. It's like, you know what? It's us. We're doing it. And just love the fact
that really resonates with me. We've gone with that same. We've heard that same compliment. We've had that same strategy of trying to create that old school Wed way. We've got our blue sky loft overlooking the scenic shop, but to have the actual park you're working on, not just an hour down the 5 like Wed had,
down the road,
literally 5 minutes away. That does seem like a creative dream.
And there are
come
several
true.
times where the two of us, and not just the two of us. I mean, you know, we are a small team and we are a family, but where we can say, well, hold on, what about that in the mausoleum? Let's just go over and take a look.
Yeah, we walk through the space.
So we'll go over there and be able to say this or that. I mean, there was a meeting just earlier this week where I was asked just to make a decision. I don't even remember what the topic was, but it was, what do you think we should do? And I had to say to Ken, I said, I would rather stand in the park and make the decision based on where the sunlight is falling. I don't want to just say it here. I want to stand there and look at it and say, that's where it should be.
Right.
Yeah.
Once again,
It's tremendous.
The fact that we can, well, here's another thing, and on another side note, Ken, Ship, and I all felt that it was pretty empowering to only use Utah-based vendors. So if you think about that, foam, finishing, all the things that go into making really great design and set design work, that's a lot of work. Mel, I know you own your own studio, you run your own studio down there and all that. You know what goes into that type of work. It's massive, and if you're going to do it locally, and especially in a place in Utah where theme parks don't exist, there's an old amusement park here that's been here forever, but they don't have that level of what we're talking about. So we're doing it in-house. We're using local vendors. We're using vendors and artisans that provide craftsmanship here in the state and around the area in which we're building this park.
But there's a lot of local pride in that too, which helps from, really a publicity standpoint as well, because of how many people here can say, hey, I had my hands involved with building Evermore.
Well, it's pride.
Or my uncle was over there doing this or that. I mean, we hear that a lot now that we are open because people are so happy to have this here and to have been a part of it.
When we get a lot of contacts, I get a lot of contacts on LinkedIn and stuff asking if we're hiring out and we're going to need a vendor from somewhere else. And
a lot from overseas.
Yeah, all overseas. And I'm very politely, I said, no, we got it all taken care of. We're doing it locally. If you get a chance, come see it. We'll show you what the locals are doing right now. And I think that's, you look at the history of like Anaheim, Disneyland, it was local vendors. It was local people. It was an old farm. It was farmland,
Yeah, very similar.
It's very similar to this. So, why reinvent the wheel? It was done right the first time. Let's just do it again.
That's cool.
Right?
Well, it does give you a reason to travel to a place when, whether you're going to Bali or somewhere, to actually get kind of the sense of the soil specific context, the spirit of the place through the artisans and the artists that are specifically in that context, even though there's a bigger vision, a bigger story at play.
Well, when I first was looking at when I first started seeing Evermore on social media, I went to Google Maps to see where this place was, and all there was that an empty farm, and I zoomed in, kept zooming in, like, wait, there's no park here.
It's dirt.
No even hint of it. And then it showed that it was wait, this is a local pumpkin patch. People come out here to get their pumpkins. And it started to click to me how something like this would grow.
Yeah.
Was that originally Ken's pumpkin patch? Or
no, that's actually...
I just love the idea that the locals used to come there for their holiday fun, but now they know the place.
There's a farm right next door to us, and right now they have their hay rides through the cornfields that are taking place right behind us.
Right behind our park.
Yeah.
It's kind of awesome because it is so homespun, But the other thing is I was going to say is Ship and I spend a lot of time in park. I probably spend more time in the park walking around, even when I'm This kind of shows you where my loyalty lies, right?
Yeah.
Even when I have a night off, I'm in the park observing. I want to see how people are handling and taking in.
It's very important.
What we're doing. And our hearts are there. We're building this thing. It's our park. I feel ownership in what we're done because my art is in this park. My team's work is there. It's ours.
Yeah.
And Ken wanted us to feel that way. I think it was very part of how do you make it good, right? You make it lovable because we love it, right?
Yeah.
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 Well, I do want to start kind of moving towards helping the listeners kind of just get their arms wrapped around what this is. But I've got to kind of rewind to just blow up my understanding of how parks get done. Where you start with a market analysis feasibility, you kind of locate it in a strategic market that is underserved. Then you go through the industrial engineering and the throughput analysis that gives you your design day and your sizing and your attendance requirements, your throughput, your traction mix, your master planning layout. You get the story and then you execute. But how I know for a fact, I have a feeling that standard operating procedure, if you will, isn't exactly the way that Evermore happened in Utah. Can you tell me about how you've kind of gone off the typical Gantt chart of Theme Park Development 101?
I don't even know.
The laugh.
I know. I'm thinking I don't even know where to start.
You were never on the chart to begin with, were you?
Well, kind of. Let me. I mean, this is purely just a setup, and then we can go deeper. But the first time I had heard about Evermore was when they had done their Pumpkin Fest in that same plot of land 4 years ago, 2014, and there was an announcement about building this fantasy park in Utah, and that just piqued my interest purely as I believe that the market here is strong. It's very family driven, and
Can I ask you just a dumb question? Like, why is it even in Utah?
Well, that is not a dumb question. That's a great question. It's in Utah because the CEO and visionary is in Utah. This is home for he and his family, and this is where
Roots.
he wanted to build
Right.
it. Yeah. So that's just that quick answer on that one. But
Sure.
but back to them building out these Halloween events, and even though Evermore isn't Halloween specific year round, that's what got them interested in doing themed entertainment and storytelling, was just doing home haunts. But in 2014 they did one out in that field, the plot of land, and announced that they were going to do this bigger park build out. Well, that went on hold for a while, and Steadman referenced earlier the fact that the Void was birthed out of Evermore, which is accurate. That technology as a walking VR experience was intended to be part of the Evermore Park, and then became such a big thing all on its own that Evermore Park got put on hold so that the Void could be developed as a standalone business, and then became its own thing. But in the process of being on hold, what had happened was Ken and his team started to do market studies about Utah in general, and the original park that they wanted to build, which we have a model of here in the shop and had been shown online quite a bit actually, what they started to realize through market study was that that size was probably a bit aggressive for this market. It's not that there was a lack of desire for that. It was, hey, if we're going to sustain a park on a year-round basis, what are the costs involved with that? And so they started to do real studies, and what they came back with, was, build it more in this type of a footprint size. Right now, what we have built is almost 11 acres, and at that point, you could probably drive your market and have a full park, most of the time, which is an ideal situation for a business to be able to operate. So not, for that team, because neither of us were on board at that point, but for that team to be able to analyze the market and make those decisions, I thought, when I had heard that, I thought that was actually a very mature decision. Because the dream to build something that big is like, but we want it all, and you might set yourself up for that kind of failure.
Yeah.
And instead it was, hey, but if we do this market will just love it, and we'll be able to eat it up, and you'll be able to sustain it. And that is a really mature decision to be able to make. So
Yeah, critical mass.
The other
Right
part
in
of
the right
that,
spot.
the other part of that too, just piggybacking off Ship's comment, is there are families in Utah. Families.
yeah,
It's a family state. In other words,
Yeah.
the culture already provides the ratio that you would need for a park, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
When we were on China and I was talking with Doris, and Doris would talk about her, my producer would talk about the ratio. It was mom and dad, one child, and grandma and grandpa. Always. That was always the ratio. Well, this is like 6 kids, mom and dad, right? Aunts, uncles, cousins. This is a huge family state. Huge. Why wouldn't you do something like this here?
and I mean, I'm probably okay to talk about this. I've talked about it a few times, but back in late '90s at Imagineering, we had an open forum pitch program, like a gong show, and I'd always been deeply in love with Mineral King and Independence Lake from the Imagineering standpoint.
Yeah.
And I thought, what if we built that kind of thing in the state of Utah for the reasons that Steadman just noted? It's a family market. There's an international airport. The Olympics were being brought in, which so all the roads were being widened up to be able to handle larger traffic flow. There's the level of annual pass holders in the state of Utah to this day is only second to California, I believe, for Disneyland. And
Wow.
There's just this whole idea that this market is starving for that. And so I thought, hey, Mineral King, Independence Lake. And so I went over to the archives at the studio, and Dave Smith pulled every piece of documentation for me on the project. Then I sat and talked with John Hench actually for a really long time, and he filled me in on everything and basically said, good luck. We had a hard time getting it done then, so I wish you luck. And then I asked Hench, I said, hey, so from what I understand, the reason why those two projects never really happened, I'm just trying to equip myself before going into the room, right? I said it was because of, things like the Sierra Club and all that kind of thing, not really wanting Disney to go in and affect the landscape. And Hench said, he goes, no, the only reason we didn't build those things was because Walt died. And I said, really? It's that easy? And he said, yeah, if Walt would have lived, you would be going to those places right now. He said, when he wanted something and he dreamed it and he knew it, what it was, you did it.
Yeah.
He said there's convenience of story, throughout the years. He goes, when you have a Walt behind something, he goes, we just didn't have a champion anymore. And I went, wow, all right, I'm going to go in there. So I go in and I'm like, we're going to build this great, awesome thing in Utah. And I kind of got laughed out of the room. But the reason I bring that up is because I believed in this market here, and I was trying to get the big guns to come to the market. So when I heard that in 2014 there was this guy that was going to be building a park for this market, I wasn't thinking, hey, how can I get involved? I was thinking, wow, somebody's going to do it and they're going to win. They've got a captive audience who's starving. And I had no idea that in 2017 I would be having a conversation with the guy and getting an offer, and then talking to my family about, coming to Utah to help build this new thing. And I'm glad I did.
Just you were being set up at that time.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many of these pieces throughout the years that have fallen into place that are serendipity to make this happen.
And people love the family entertainment stuff, and Sundance Film Festival is here. Park City's right around the corner from where we're at. It makes it valuable in my book. It's here, right? We're doing it, and it's working. It's working. So
Hold up there, Skip. We'll be back with the rest of our interview in just a moment. But first, these words. Did you know that 1 in every 3 websites is built on WordPress? WordPress sites are super versatile. In fact, if your website is not on WordPress, you're losing out. You need the WordPress experts at My Studio Space LLC to help you out. Their friendly staff can build your new website, give your old site a facelift, or they can help you make those stubborn little changes that you simply don't have time for. My Studio Space will help you claim your domain, your custom email, and set up your entire site. Visit them on the web at mystudiospace.com or call 407-701-7577 to get started. And here's an outrageous special offer for you, our podcast listeners. Switch your hosting from GoDaddy to My Studio Space, and they'll pay you $100 cash. Just mention Themed Attraction when you call to redeem your offer. That's mystudiospace.com.
Well, and I mean the scope and the scale of the park and the strategy of opening it in phases. Can you talk to that? I mean, what is the annual attendance first year that it was built for, and what scale of kind of capital reinvestment or growth are you trying to, like, when's the park quote built out, or is that, you know what I mean?
You just asked
the gap between phase 1 versus opening phase.
You just
or
asked
master plan.
like money questions to a couple of creatives.
Yeah, we're like, just let us know if we can build it.
Yeah, when can we get started?
We call finance. I call finance. I go, I need to buy all our Christmas decorations today. I'm not making this up. And he's like, okay. Well, let me look. We'll do okay. So, I will answer some of this, and I'm going to have Ship answer some of it. We are opening in phases because this is it. We're building a park based on Ken's wealth. That's what we're doing, and that's not a mystery. It shouldn't be a mystery anywhere. So it's and what investments Ken wants to get. Ken wants ownership on this. This is his dream. So he didn't want to sell out. Right? Let's just say that. That should set a little bit of some kind of an idea of how we're doing this. So it's his project. He wants, they talk about a Walt, right? And a champion of a project. So referencing that, we have opened phase 1, which there's, how many troughs do we have in the park that are train tunnels? We have 3 train tunnels, right? I want to make sure I'm saying this right. I'm not looking at our map, but we have 2 major train tunnels where the steam train will cross them. We've opened up to the second train tunnel, which means we have 1 quarter left of the park that we're still building. It's being built as we speak. With more things coming online. With that being said, people are loving what we've already opened, so they're enjoying it immensely. We have let me count off the top of my head, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 set pieces, meaning they're walk-through experience buildings that you either walk around or you walk through that are already open, that help tell our story. So they're completely set out. They're beautiful, fully produced, with beautiful handcrafted lighting. Some of them have, Ship and I have spent a lot of time sourcing artisans and people who can make things that help tell the story of each building and the characters that live there, right? So Ken and Krista Sapp, they went to Europe and they sourced 14 shipping containers of authentic antiques from different periods of Europe.
14 sea containers, are you serious?
Yeah, of antiques, building facade work, castings, headstones that help install our park. So those items we've delicately handled, and I've worked with Mill Creek constructors and Mill Creek builders, which is a great partner at the park, and they're building the park. And John Underwood, who's heading that up, he has a very fine attention to detail and making sure that things look fantastic. And he's built big, beautiful homes, and he's been building all our spaces. And so he cares. We give him a piece of something from Europe, we incorporate it, and then my team does the incorporation. So I don't mean to segue too bad off your question. I apologize, but what we've opened tells a really good portion of our story for lore. Our first season, we have Christmas around the corner called Aurora. We are going to be opening more of the park. The fact that we've opened phase 1, there's a phase 2, meaning the other portion, and then there's like a 2.5, right? Phase 2.5, which is a whole nother build out, which is going to be amazing too. I don't know how to answer it. I think I'm rambling. It's visual. I'm visually describing what we've done.
You are, but you said it at the beginning. The reason for the structure now and the phasing process really is, financial. Ken has put in far more than what he expected, and it's not. It has not been easy because he is just a guy, right? He had success developing the company Digicert in years past, and then eventually the Void became, a key factor in success as well. And everything that he has accomplished and earned with he and his family is in the dirt right now in Pleasant Grove. If this were to fail, it would be a complete fail for the Brett Snyder family. So this phase 1, this opening that we've had is every dime that he owns. And it's there and it's showing, and which is why he doesn't mind talking about it, because he's like, hey guys, please come, because if you don't, I'm dead. But with that in mind, there is so much in the creative realm, because we need to get into the revenue and to be able to put it back into the park, and that is the intent, is to have this continue to perpetually reinvest and grow the park. And right now we have about 24 months of expansion that is planned, that is actively planned. And then we have probably another good year to a year and a half of what if, wouldn't it be cool beyond that? But we'll have to see, how this continues to mature in that way, because like we say, things can change quite quickly. Mm-hmm. But in terms of the intent of what can be here, there's that. And then there's also been active conversations about Evermore existing in other markets. We knew that we had to get this one right. We had to get it open. We had to know what we were doing. But there have been many conversations about other markets where Evermore could exist. And then to put something on top of that, I mean, I won't go into details, but we have another entertainment venue that is in the same complex of space that is not Evermore. It's a completely separate business entity that we haven't even made massive public announcements on, and will probably be revealed in barely over a month from now. I know that seems pretty quick to have something not talked about, but what we're doing with that, and I hesitate right now because I don't want to say anything until we've made any actual public announcements, but with that, you think we're doing everything Evermore in fantasy, and it's like, well, actually we're doing something else also, and you're going to be blown away by that as well. And that has the ability to launch domestically in a huge way, and we've already had some business investors express desire for us to consider international markets for this other. I know I apologize for having to be so vague about that.
No.
On this conversation.
You're increasing my curiosity.
I'm just giving you an idea of how this this Ken Brett Schneider world exists here. I mean, we are so actively being creative and pursuing and building, but we are doing it down to the last dime, nickel, and penny. And then we're sitting there going, where can we go? I'm going to go check my ashtray in my car and see if I got extra change, because we need to get the mausoleum up and go. I mean, we are truly being like the scrappiest of scrappy.
We have to be.
And I will say, passion really carries really far. I mean, you're talking to two guys here who have a lot of passion. Ken's got a lot of passion. We have a team that has a lot of passion. I was in an environment many years ago where a senior level individual in a meeting said, check your passion at the door. And I found that to be so offensive, because the reason why this scrappy little project is happening and people are having fun and enjoying themselves every night is because passion is what got it across the finish line and continues to, at least for the next 24, 36 months.
Well, yeah. Talk about John Hench.
Yeah.
Okay, you brought up John Hench, right? You think those guys weren't passionate when they built that park?
Yeah.
I correct you.
No, you're right.
Right? They had to be, because everyone that built and designed that were old set designers that Walt picked up, or they were animators, and there were people who cared about their product and they cared about every line they put down. So why is it so bad to idolize that?
Yeah,
right?
well, no, Hench says it in his book because we used it for a training program at one point. Walt would encourage them and say, get down there, go to the park, walk in those guest shoes. Don't park behind the scenes, go back there and see what people are doing, because if you don't, how can you breathe it?
How can you preach what you're saying and what you say you should do when it's just about the money? Because that's ludicrous, and quite honestly, it's insulting for those who care, right? I find it insulting because we want to build and do things that we want to participate. We want to see it. We want to see it work.
And I kind of feel the sniper dot on me still when I start talking about this stuff.
Someone from office headquarters in Glendale is going to show up with a sniper gun. Which be careful what we say. Part of us being in Utah, I would say too, on representing both Ship and I, is to escape some of that. It was to come back to our roots and come back to a place where we could do this without being micromanaged, and do it with Ken, who loves it anyway. And I think that's the other part of that.
And kind of like what I was saying, Ken, who's willing to risk it all. Yeah. I will say, when I was making the hard decision about leaving and coming up here to join this, there was a lot, trying to weigh the pros and cons back and forth. And one of the things that helped me in that process was I was listening to one of Lee Cockrell's podcasts, and he was referring risk taking. And and if you're the type of person who's just content, being in your normal thing, then there's no reason to take a risk. But if you want to change the world, you're going to have to put it all on the line. And I'm paraphrasing, obviously, but that was what I took away from it. And I'm listening to that, going, you know what? You're right. If I want to go change the world, meaning themed entertainment in this instant, I'm gonna have to put something at risk here. And I felt like Ken was putting more at risk than any of us could ever do. Well, so I'm like, you know what? I'll follow that guy because he's really doing it.
And I think his core team of us, we're all risk takers. I mean, how you don't create new things and invent new things by being passive and being safe and letting others fail in front of you. I can't stand that. It's like a huge thing for me. I've watched and experienced it firsthand. People I care about who let others fail first so that they can piggyback off that success and do it and just copy it, right? I mean, come on. That's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
But to quote, to kind of also say the same thing, Ship, Steve Jobs, right? When he was recruiting his new VP or whatever, I can't remember the guy's name, so forgive me. But he said, you want to keep making sugar water because he was president of PepsiCo or Coca-Cola or something. Keep making sugar water. You come with me and change the world. And I think change the world was something we both love.
Change the world.
Yeah. Why not do something awesome? And it's a legacy, right? So...
Yeah, it's going to be a legacy for the area. It's going to be a legacy, I hope, in a lot of the destinations that we start to see this, see how you guys influence other destinations.
Yeah, and I mean, kind of with that in mind, I mean, because we, yourselves included, I mean, we've all helped facilitate that in the themed entertainment market, and there's a lot of that is currently existing or coming online for the big players, in terms of, an immersive environment and that kind of thing. This is an area that I think people are enjoying playing in, figuring out how to engage with the world around them, get their faces out of a screen and back into the real world. So it's not unique to us, but I will say one thing that is unique to Evermore in that regards is we built a park from the ground up whose entire purpose is for that. It's not
fun.
Yeah, it's not an ad hoc to an existing structure that has to play by existing rules. It is from the ground up meant for this one purpose.
I had two young kids come up to me last night in the park. I was with Ken wandering around. And first of all, first part of this is I had watched and observed young adults, millennials, and teenagers and college kids. We're in a college town. There's two universities right nearby, and they're big universities. They're not small, right? BYU has upwards of 70,000 students. UVU has 100,000 college kids from all over. So there's another market. Let's talk about that. And they're young people,
and the workforce,
right? They're not baby boomers. They're young people that look for the new things, new trends, right? If you want to build something that's going to last, you tap into the market that's coming. You don't tap into the market that's already existed and seen success. And I'm not saying that because I got a chip on my shoulder. I'm saying that because that's just truth. You don't follow the past generation. You look at the new ones.
Well, you learn from
right.
the past
you learn from the past, but you change it. You have to bend, right?
Yeah.
So having said all that, these young people were in the park. These kids are glued to devices. Let's just all admit this right now, right?
Yep.
They wander around stuck to device, communicating to each other, right next to each other on devices.
Yeah,
I've seen
anti-social media has taught them how to not talk
be
to
social.
Each other.
So these kids
media.
Kids were in the park and they're forced to ask questions to actors who then direct them to go somewhere. Okay, it's awesome to watch because there's some timid shyness there, and then there's a serendipitous part where they start doing it because they get the game side. They're also a gaming generation. They all play games, right?
Yeah.
Digital games. So all of a sudden they're running around on quests, pseudo scavenger hunts that have a storyline to them. And I witness young people running across the bridge and whatnot, going to find the goblin, going to find the hunter, join a guild. and become a part of something for real. That's physical activity. And they were coming up to Ken and thanking him for building this park. Young people, I saw it 4 times last night. Groups of them. This is so cool. This is like Skyrim for real.
I hear that a lot.
Why did you do this? This is amazing. And it's inspiring. It's freaking
incredible.
cool. It's freaking cool to see people get it, you know? Yeah.
Well, guys, our time is up, but I just hope you know that you've got a lot of people rooting for you.
Yeah, that's right.
In the fan community, in the
Keep
designer
rooting because it's
community.
also hard.
You're doing,
It's hard.
yeah,
It's hard. It's
we'll
true.
be there. And I just really can't encourage anyone listening in to just get your butt on that Delta airplane and get out to Salt Lake City. It's a hub, and experience this, and not just once. Really, you definitely need to experience it.
Yeah, well, especially
during all the
since
different seasonal
we
events.
do different events. Yeah, exactly. Throughout the year, that story
It's a
evolves and
different
changes.
experience, right? Based on when you go. So,
And for those of you coming to that Salt Lake hub there, it's only about a 45 minute drive away from the airport.
Yep, just get out of the airport. So thanks so much for taking the time out of
We can't wait.
crazily busy season in your life and in the life of this. This
I think I'm going to throw on a
amazing
costume
experience.
tonight. Actually,
you?
to go out.
Are you gonna go in
I'm going to go
costume?
be a character tonight. Yeah.
That's one more thing. Before we go,
awesome.
we encourage everyone to come in appropriate costumes for the park.
It's not required, but boy, we sure do welcome it.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. That's good.
Will do. I'll pack it.
All right. Good. Awesome.
Thanks,
All right,
guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. We will talk to you again soon, and hopefully we'll have you on another time again in the future.
In the park.
Yeah,
In the
we'll
park,
do a live
yes.
one in the park.
Fantastic.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right, guys.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thanks.
See you then. Oh my goodness. I wish we had another hour to spend with the 2 Joshes of Evermore. And definitely we're going to have to get together with them at Evermore Park and record a second episode. This is a really fantastic opportunity to hear brand new papas, brand new daddies, telling their story of this baby that was just born.
Well, a lot of ways,
in
they're
Utah.
still in delivery, actually.
Oh, they
They've
are
got
still in
many
delivery.
phases to go. So.
Yeah, that's definitely true. Well, so what'd you learn, Mel?
You know, it's not every day that an entire new typology of theme park, attraction, what have you, come along. And I think this is really kind of like Disneyland was, just a very fascinating synthesis / evolution of some existing things. I mean, to me, I see some really neat elements of living theater, like a dinner theater that goes, a lot longer and a lot, writ large, I guess, on a much broader campus. Elements of like a Renaissance pleasure fair, elements of, the different wonderful seasonal events, from the Christkindl market I grew up in Germany to some of the great haunt experiences. The opportunity to take this park and really almost reinvent it with the different seasons and the different sub themes and festivals they have. Like I said, I'm so excited to see these guys just blow up the box and come up with something that is really something that has to be, I think, truly experienced to really have your arms wrapped around it. But yeah, there's so many things about this that I love, and I'm just excited for the industry to get a breath of fresh air that isn't just this big mega $1 billion plus corporate IP project, but something that truly does scratch that itch of creativity and imagination.
Yeah, it's fantastic. They're just now heading into, when this episode's released, they're just, they're about knee deep in the holiday season with their overlay of Aurora, which is just going to be a beautiful, traditional and yet surprisingly non-traditional view of the Christmas season that Evermore Park is going to bring back year after year. We're really looking forward to seeing it. Well, Mel, it's time to return this boat to the dock, or I'm going to lose my deposit. Until next time, thanks, folks. The Themed Attraction Podcast is hosted by Freddy Martin and Mel McGowan. Leave us a review on iTunes Podcasts and share the show with your friends. Our guests were Chief Creative Officer of Evermore Park, Josh Shipley, and Evermore's Director of Show Design and Production, Josh Steadman. Visit Evermore online at evermore.com and follow this incredible new experience park on the socials at Evermore Park. Connect with Shipley on Twitter and Instagram at Shipleyland, and follow Steadman on Instagram at Steadman Styles. Get access to more stories and interviews at themedattraction.com, the world's most comprehensive site on theme park and themed entertainment design. Connect with Mel by email via mel@storylandstudios.com or follow him on Twitter at Mel McGowan and Instagram at Visioneer. You can find me at freddymartin.net and follow my adventures at Skipper Freddy on Instagram and Twitter. Our theme music was composed by Rob Watson, other music provided by The Lost Dogs. This episode was designed and produced by the one and only Dr. Barry Hill. Find him at barryrhill.com. You know, Mel, Barry is always quite curious about the plant life here in the jungle, so I thought I'd take a minute to point out some of my favorites. There's one. There's one. There's another one. Thanks for listening, folks. There's one.